This is the Business Value Exchange, and I'm Helen Beckett, the Community Manager. Very pleased to have with me today Sheila Bryant, who's the CFO of Leading Resolutions and formerly held Finance Director positions in the fleet management sector. Welcome, Sheila.
Hi, Helen.
Now, you're with us today. You've kindly agreed to chat to me today because we have a focus on the Chief Finance Officer. And we're looking at really how the role has changed in this new digital economy where everyone wants to be digitally enabled and connected, and the traditional role is changing somewhat. What are the new priorities for the CFO?
Well, I think that, the CFO still needs to do the bread and butter, of course, of making sure there's enough money in the bank and the debits and credits are in the right place. But that's all kind of taken for granted. And the real aspect that's important is the commerciality. How's the business developing? How can we use the digital environment to better engage with our customers, retain the relationship with our customers, ensure that we're reaching out to them in the appropriate way? And I don't just mean in a cost-effective way. I mean making the most of the market opportunities as well.
So a focus very much you describe on competitiveness. And in the past, I think it's fair to say that the CFO and the CIO have had quite maybe a contrary, slightly adversarial relationship with a focus on, as you say, cost, the cost center. How does the CFO, how is he or she now regarding IT as a potential for the business?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually, Helen, because I think when you go back a few years, that you're quite right. There was almost an adversarial role between the CIO, who wanted to spend money, and sometimes it felt like the latest gadgets needed to be purchased, and the CFO, who clearly wanted to keep that money under wraps. And now I think there's much more collaboration between the two, and the roles so much developed so that everybody has to have a better understanding of one another's position. I wouldn't expect to understand the deep technical side of IT, but what I want to know is, what does it do for the business? How does it help us develop the business? How does it help us stay ahead of our competitors? And I think that the CIO and the CFO can engage really well in conversations around that, and so they both take a much more commercial and proactive approach now to how they did, how they worked together so many years ago.
That's a really interesting development that you describe, and something that will, I think, be very optimistic for both parties, both the CXOs there. I mean, how do you imagine that conversation might go? You've given us a hint that the conversation is different nowadays. How might it go? Is it purely to do, well, you're saying it's not to do with cost. What sort of topics might they engage in?
No, I think it's much more about how does this move the business forward, and how does it help us maintain the competitive edge that we've got. It's talking about business rather than talking about technicality, and I think that's the key thing. It's not just about the technology, the digital age. It's what can that digital age do for us? How can it be harnessed? How can we make sure that we are that step ahead? But equally, how do we make sure that we are implementing solutions that give us some longevity, because we've still got to achieve a payback. That's as much in the CIO's remit as it is in the CFO's remit. So yeah, much more collusion on that front.
So collusion, and you're describing a much closer partnership and something that
yes,
will really together looking at the future of the business, where IT is quite an instrumental tool. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sheila, for outlining that. We're looking forward to hearing more about on that topic. Many thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks, Helen. Goodbye.